everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Marketing Inc. And I have a repeat guest for the very first time. So I really want you guys to get excited because we have Alex Charfen back with us again today. This is going to be a really amazing episode. So welcome back, Alex.
Thanks, Allie. I've been so excited to come back. The first time was so much fun. We had to do it again.
Yeah, no, I was very, very excited to see that, you wanted to record with us again. So that was a podcast boost of confidence for sure. I appreciate it. So what we're going to talk about today is how to really improve your personal and business productivity. This is definitely something that I definitely try and focus on and have always been really interested in. And as most of you guys probably know, and as Alex definitely knows, there's so much bad information out there. So why don't we just kind of start there? What pieces of information have you heard over the years that really either did not work for you, did not work for anyone you knew, or that you just believed were flat out wrong that kind of inspired you to go deeper into this topic?
You know, Allie, I think the biggest thing in the world, like if we're going to talk about personal productivity, I like to back up and talk about the psychology of personal productivity, especially for entrepreneurs. And here's what I think the biggest issue in the world is that we have this hustle culture, this, win at all costs mentality, grind yourself down to nothing, pull all-nighters. Like the only way to be successful is to destroy yourself. And here's why I find that so incredibly challenging. Now let's take a step back. So here's what I know about 100% of entrepreneurs I've ever worked with. And Allie, let's see if this is true for you. Every entrepreneur I've ever worked with has gone through a period of time in their lives where they could barely see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like wasn't even barely there. And the people around them were like, you're going in the wrong direction. You don't have what it takes. You shouldn't be doing this. That light at the end of the tunnel is a train. And instead of backing out of the tunnel, entrepreneurs kept going towards it. They pulled that light towards them. We pull ourselves towards it. We step through it. And that's where we actually create our lives. And that hardship period before that is intense. Allie, do you know this period of your life?
Oh, 100%.
I think every entrepreneur does. It's a universal feeling. Now, here's the problem. When we are pursuing an outcome and we go through all that struggle and trials and challenges and issues, what happens is we have psychological conditioning that tells us if we are going to succeed, we need to feel pain. If we are going to do well, it has to be hard. If we're going to do something significantly, then we have to go through, really a lot of challenge and a lot of stress and a lot of frustration. And here's why I bring this up. Now, in some ways, that's true. If you want to achieve something great in the world, you're going to have to work really hard. If you want to go change people's lives, you're going to have to work on yourself. If you want to make massive outcomes in the world, you're going to have to commit to the process, structure, and routine that's going to move you forward. But I think the challenge for entrepreneurs is that we've been sold this bill of goods that we should put up with all the discomfort around us, all the frustration around us, and just keep trying to go forward. And so I take a different look at this. When it comes to personal productivity for entrepreneurs, my first rule is let's lower pressure and noise in your life first. And here's how I look at most products, most systems, most structures in the world that tell you to move forward or to improve your life. It's like there's no recognition of where you are. It's just add all of this work, add all of this stuff, do all this new thing, all these new things. And that only makes pressure and noise go up. And so for me, productivity starts with what can we get rid of? What can we unload? What can we offload? Let's take an inventory of the people, the places, the things in our lives. And let's ask ourselves the difficult question, am I getting momentum from this? Or is it taking momentum away? And if it's binary, you're either getting it or you're not. And if something's taking momentum away, you have to offload it out of your life. So for me, we start with a holistic view of the entrepreneur and we say, what can we make easier for you first?
I think that is so amazing. And honestly, some of those comments are really what resonated with me very significantly from our last conversation. The offloading discomfort topic, that has been something I've really tried to focus on since then. And it definitely is a shift in terms of the way that I previously did things. And I wasn't even aware of it at the time, but being able to at least identify, because of the momentum planner, where was I uncomfortable yesterday? That very simple question, it really is eye-opening because it does force me to say, why would I keep doing this? But in terms of our entire lives, that's something I'm probably going to do as soon as we get off this call is make that inventory, because I definitely have business focused lists, but really as entrepreneurs, our entire life it all melds together in so many ways. The personal responsibilities we have, the family commitments that we have, all of those things are going to take up our time. And, you know, one of the simple ones, I think, at least for me, that I finally had to come to terms with, that I just needed to pay for it, are things like housework and house cleaning and things that literally suck the life out of me. I hate them so much. And I can afford to pay someone to do that, even if I, you know, have struggled with some of those things. I've been very frugal my whole life. And so I just don't usually spend on things that I believe I can do myself. But I have definitely come to the realization that just because I can do something does not mean that I should be doing it. So I think that simply writing out that list is just an amazing exercise. And I know for sure that I can benefit from that.
Allie, can I ask you a question? You've been using the Momentum Planner, you know, and each day you sit down, and there's really two main questions to our page, which is funny because most planners, they are totally centered around a to-do list, and really ours is centered around what is your intention for the day and where were you uncomfortable yesterday. So now that you've been using it, what surprised you about that uncomfortable question, or what insights have you gained around that?
A lot of my discomfort has been coming from a lack of time in certain areas. So feeling like I have too many calls in a day. I do coaching calls at least 3 days a week that are several hours. And then I also have, you know, coaching programs that I'm involved in that I do those coaching trainings. And so because of that, that's already taking up a good amount of time. But I love doing those things. So those things actually, you know, give me momentum. But other types of calls, you know, such as just with current clients, doing updates, things that I could have a member of my team ultimately do for me, or having maybe not the most productive calls with my own team, or just these little in-between tasks that are just forcing me to be rushed. So having the stress of time has 100% been what I have been most aware of in the last several weeks. And some of those things I'm not going to be able to get rid of, but they are the things that I really enjoy doing. So I do have a salesperson that is taken so much pressure off of me in terms of the sales calls. But then potentially bringing on someone to do account management is going to be a great next step for me. And then we're really trying to implement, you know, your suggestions on running team meetings and all of those things. So I do believe that we'll be able to get more done in a shorter period of time, which is going to free me up and hopefully reduce some of that stress. And then, you know, just trying to become a better leader, I think, is always something that I wouldn't necessarily makes me uncomfortable, but I see my own shortcomings in certain areas. And I know that I could be better for my team so that they could also be more productive, which is in turn going to free up my time. So it's been very eye-opening. Totally different format than everything I've ever used. And I've tried so many different planners in my life, but they end up just sitting on my desk unused after a while because it becomes more of a chore. And it's just one more task on the to-do list, fill out the planner. You know, like you already said on the last time we were talking, why do you need a calendar? You probably have a calendar in your computer, on your phone, that's with you all the time. And that's the truth. So trying to like duplicate that process because it's a planner that's just formatted that way, it really doesn't make any sense. So I think the design is brilliant, but really the things that it opens your eyes to is much more significant than anything I've ever seen from a very simple design. Ultimately, you know, it's not overcomplicated. And I think that's something I really like about it.
What's really insightful about what you just shared, first, you know, you just shared in a way that just shows how extraordinary of an entrepreneur you are, because the simple question, where were you uncomfortable yesterday? I want everyone to kind of like hear what I heard and what you just said, Allie, is that this question has led you to examine what you're doing on a daily basis, understand what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing, offload what you shouldn't be doing, become more productive in the day, and then be able to move forward with more momentum. You know, when you look at like how dynamic is it that all of that comes from asking a simple question, where was I uncomfortable yesterday? You know, I have this saying that I share with entrepreneurs: if you don't have a system in your life where you identify where you're uncomfortable and offload it, you will tolerate too much. Ali, you shared an interesting insight about like getting home help, getting help for yourself. I wonder if I can share a really quick story about a friend of mine.
Absolutely.
So when I was young, because I think you and I have some stuff in common on this, and maybe you'll relate to this story. So when I was in my 20s, I had a business in Florida. I had a friend who was running a company in New York. And our businesses hit $1 million revenue right at around the same time. And so about 8 months, 9 months after we hit $1 million revenue, I flew up to see him in New York. And I flew up there, and I was running a significant business, but out of my house, out of my bedroom by myself. I go up to see my friend in New York, and there's an assistant there. And while we're hanging out, his clothes are dropped off, like all folded nicely in bags, and food was delivered for him. And this is what was in my mind. Like, why does he need all this help? I do all this stuff myself. I'm better than he is. Huge mistake in thinking. By the way, if this was a book, that would be foreshadowing of how silly I was being. And so flew home, did all the stuff myself again. Year and a half, 2 years later, I go up to New York. Now things have gotten crazy. I'm still working out of my house. I'm still working out of the bedroom. I'm in my early 20s. I go up to New York. Now I don't even see him first. I get picked up by an assistant. Then I get driven to his office. Another assistant takes me upstairs. We go upstairs. There's 2 assistants in his office. And while we're there, even more stuff's going on. People are coming in, having him sign stuff. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, he needs so much help. Like, this is just silly. It took until the 3rd trip. This is a couple years later. I fly up to New York. I land at the airport. I get on his helicopter. His helicopter takes me to his office. I'm like terrified because we're flying all over New York, landing on a building. I had flown helicopters before, but it was really scary that time. I go see him. We take the helicopter back to the airport and then take his plane down to Florida. And that was the time that I spent with him. And on the plane,
I'd say that'd be impactful.
Yeah. And well, here's what happened, Allie. On the plane, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I want to be very candid about how I felt. Oh, God, I'm getting uncomfortable because I'm going to actually say this out loud. When I flew up there, I was completely and totally like overcome with jealousy and frustration. And I couldn't figure out why things were going so well for him and why I was still in a place where I was doing everything myself. And that 3rd trip was confronting. It was like, man, I don't have any of this help. I don't have anything like this. And on the flight back from from New York to Florida, it hit me. I'm like, holy cow. I'm making decent money and I'm like putting it in the bank. I'm not spending anything. And if I spent just a little bit of it, I would have so much more time, so much more energy, so much more to give. And it finally hit me like, that's why he's doing all of this. And we had a brief conversation on the plane. I said like, hey man, tell me about how are you doing this? Like, how do you get help? How do you figure out where you need help? And the insight he gave me was once or twice a month, I sit down, I write down all the stuff that I hate and I make sure somebody else does it by the end of that week. And that was how he did it. We created a system.
It's such a simple but impactful way to do it, honestly.
So he did. He told me that. And Allie, I went home that day and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I sat down and I wasn't good at it. I couldn't even come up with the things that I hated because I was so used to tolerating them. But at the end of that first list, I had probably 20 or 30 things that I really didn't like in my life. I spent the next few weeks getting them out of my life. This was in my mid-20s. And this is where it almost was like releasing the top on a like shaken up bottle of soda and it explodes. As soon as I started offloading where I was uncomfortable, our business doubled that year. I kept doing it aggressively. Our business doubled again. By the time I was 30, my business had gone from a startup where we were making decent money and probably responsible for about $60-70 million in sales to where we were responsible for over $250 million in sales. And we were a multi-million-dollar company. I was making a ton of money. And it was all because I started offloading where it was uncomfortable. And here's the key, getting help. And I call it the entrepreneur's dilemma. We need far more help than the average person to get to our outcomes, our destination, to what we want to do. But any request for help leaves us feeling vulnerable and exposed. And if you do it in this way, where you identify where you're uncomfortable and you get help right there, it starts making it much easier to get even more help. So I just wanted to share that story because, man, I think back and I'm like, why couldn't have had that insight on the first trip to New York, not the 3rd 5 years later?
Well, I think there is definitely this feeling, sometimes I've had it, that the more you can do yourself, like the stronger you are, or the more quote unquote productive you are. Yeah. But it is such a trap. I mean, what I hate more than anything is not just doing things I don't like, but doing things I don't like after I've worked really hard and given so much of myself that day. And then those are the things that I'm doing instead of doing something that actually fills my cup and helps me feel rewarded or, more at peace with whatever that day is held. So I think that's really amazing. It's been a challenge for me for sure, the releasing of my money to bring back more of my time. But this year, more than any other year, I've done it a lot more, and our sales have definitely reflected that as well. So it seems like kind of backwards advice sometimes, like spend more money to make more money, but in so many ways that's ultimately what you need to do, just in very specific areas, I think.
Yeah,
So
and you can do it with spending very little money, Allie. You can do stuff like setting up all of your monthly shipments on Amazon Prime. It actually saves you money. You can start shopping by having groceries delivered. You can, something as simple as just making sure that all the stuff that you need for the next day is laid out the day before, that you're planning your days. It's easy to lower the pressure and noise and get some help when you don't, even something as simple as a morning routine. Maybe you don't have the money to invest in help or to invest in people to come in and help you. But if you create a written morning routine, I usually have mine right on my desk here, but if you create a written morning routine that you check off, and I have mine just to show you that I actually use one, and that will save you time, that will save you energy. So anywhere you can get it back is energy you can put back into your business.
Yeah, and I would actually love to hear a little bit about your morning routine. So I have one that I've done for quite a while. It's the Miracle Morning, system. It's really funny because I was actually doing just a little mini mindset training with my students last week. So I was sharing all the details of the Miracle Morning, and I actually told them about your planner. And it was very interesting because in the Miracle Morning, like, writing is part of the process. Yeah. And I was suggesting, hey, if you don't feel like you're a creative writer, then you could do something similar to maybe the 5-minute journal style. But then I said, in reality, a lot of the writing that you might want to do is just in the planner. You're setting your intention for the day. You're talking about where you were uncomfortable yesterday and where you want this day to end. And it is more of like a journal planner that simply just makes you more intentional about everything that you're doing and starting the day off on the right foot. So what are some of the things that you do every morning that really helps you set the tone for the rest of the day?
So Allie, I approach most things in my life in a very scientific way. The amount of science in the Momentum Planner is huge. There's probably 30 or 40 different published articles that we have to back up our strategies. Same thing for and we actually, this is kind of a preview of what's to come. We are going to try and do a clinical study on the Momentum Planner to see if it improves outlook and if it improves how people feel about themselves. We believe that we can compete with antidepressants. We believe that we can get better outcomes with the Momentum Planner than antidepressants because there's that much science in it. Same thing with my morning routine. So I want 4 things to happen in my morning. I want to make sure that I'm fully hydrated, that I've taken on the right nutrition, that I've oxygenated, and that I've moved. And so every morning I get up and I literally check boxes the whole way. I get up, I clean my mouth. Immediately I hyperhydrate, which means taking on 16 ounces or more of water. For me, it's usually closer to 40 ounces of water all at once. Gets the metabolism boosted and started. I take my supplements. I read for 20 minutes. I meditate. I go for a walk. I do a breathing exercise outside. I come in, I do some movement, some shoulder opening, some stomach stimulation, some calf stretching, some back stretching. And then I sit down and I go through my Momentum Planner. And rather than write in a journal where it can be somewhat undirected, for me, journal writing felt like disconnected from my day. It felt like I went and wrote in a journal and then I came and had to plan my day, but they weren't one and the same. And for me, I write in the Momentum Planner. I write my intention for the day. I write in detail what I'm grateful for and where I won the day before. So like yesterday, I'm grateful for our team, my family, the pool that we have in our house, the house that we created here, our dogs. I write down where I won the day before. So yesterday I won. We had a great call with a guy who's going to help us with some awards. My team weekly meetings, a friend of mine, Emmett, and I got together on a future product, which was a huge win. I had a call with our senior members. And then when I get into this, for my morning routine, I sit down and I answer, what's my intention? Where was I uncomfortable? And what are the top 3 things for me to do? And then here's what's really special about my morning routine now that I'm 47 and I have kids and a wife. Once I'm done with my Momentum Planner, I go sit down with my family and we do a family alignment. And each one of us shares what we were grateful for and where we won the day before, what our intention is, where we were uncomfortable, and our top 3. And so my 10-year-old and my 13-year-old use the same systems we do, and it's all part of the same routine. And so they have corresponding routines just like this, only theirs end up with plan with dad and mine's ends up with plan with girls. And so, you know, our morning routines all function independently and then come together for morning planning, and then we all go for a walk as a family. So by the time I'm done with this, I know that in the first hour of the day, I've given myself every chance of success, and I've given myself everything I need in order to be fully supported for the day.
And so you're doing all that in about an hour time period, correct?
It takes more or less about an hour. And if I need to, if I get up late or if we're traveling or something, I can always modify it. I kind of have the things that are a must have, but it takes about an hour to do the whole thing, including sitting down with my family.
And that's what's really interesting, is that so many people, when you tell them all of the things that in theory really should be there in that morning routine, a lot of the things I do are very similar to what you do, but I love the part about ending it with your family and going on the walk in the morning. That's something I'm going to try and add in. But people assume that it takes this extensive amount of time and that they have to wake up at 5 a.m. every day just to get it done, but it really can be flexible. I think it's more about doing the actions in a quality way as opposed to spending a very extended time period doing them. I know when I attempt to meditate, which I'll be honest, I have not yet mastered the art. I struggle very much with it, which is probably why I need to do it even more to just quiet my mind. I have a really hard time doing that. That's like a solid 5 minutes for me. I mean, I wish I could do it longer, but it's about 5 minutes, but it still gives me a benefit, I feel. And maybe it is just a mental benefit that I attempted it. You know, I may not have.
I do the same thing. I don't think any entrepreneur I've ever met has perfect meditation. I use the Muse headband because it gamifies it. So I put an EEG unit on my head and I meditate with that. And it like,
what does
I don't
that
know.
do?
So the Muse headband, you put it on your head and it takes readings of your brain as you're meditating. And as if you get distracted, the noise in the headphones gets louder. And if you start to get it better, it gets quieter. And if you really are calm, little birds start chirping. And so
that is so interesting.
So check this out. Hang on a second. It's amazing. So it also makes you look super cool because this is what you show up as. But you put this on and it's actually EEGs used to be like $10,000. This, you want to take a picture, don't you?
Yeah.
It's like $300 now. And every morning I turn it on, get the Muse going. And then here's what's really cool about this. We give this to the people on our team. So we share this with everybody on our team. And I can't remember if it's 90 days or 6 months or 9 months, but when they're with us, we send out a package like every 3 months. And so now we have a Voxer channel where every morning our team puts all their Muse results in. So everybody's meditating together and then sharing our results with each other, which makes it kind of a team activity, which is really cool. We've turned meditation into a competition.
I mean, I love that, honestly, because sometimes people need that to really focus on the activity. And the fact that you are integrating something like that into your workplace culture is really amazing. I've not heard of anybody that I know of personally that's done that. Okay, I have to ask, like, how does it really know how much you're thinking about? Obviously, there's some serious electrodes going on there, but do you find it to be very accurate? Like, it really knows when your mind is quiet?
It is so crazy accurate. In fact, if you have a bad night's sleep, it's really hard to get a good meditation with the Muse, because what it is it's kind of a step down version of a full commercial doctor's EEG. So what it's looking at is it's looking at your brain waves and it's saying, are we going into more relaxed states of brain waves? Are we getting into theta? Are we getting into gamma? Are we like going to the right place? And so I've had extensive conversations with the woman who invented the Muse, and it is incredible. It really does. It takes people from a place of, am I doing this right? To, okay, now at least I know sometimes I'm hitting it, to eventually there's days where I put this on and I'm calm the entire way through and there's birds chirping the whole time. And when I started, if a bird showed up, I was shocked by it, and then it would distract me and destroy my meditation. So
I think that's probably where I would be, but I do like it because it is very hard to know, like, am I quote unquote doing this right? And there may not be a necessary like right way exactly, but I think just like you said, being calm is the goal. And if it's showing you that, at least it takes the pressure off of you. Because that's
Yeah.
what's funny for me is like I have pressure thinking about meditating because I'm worried I'm not going to be able to do it. And so it does like, you know, add a bit of stress, but I'm going to have to check that out. I think that looks amazing.
Yeah, I think you'll love it.
Okay, so what I want to ask you now is about how you either structure your days or structure your weeks. So obviously the momentum planner is not like a weekly thing, like a calendar type of view, but I do know people who have said that they kind of give each day a theme, or certain people that maybe they have morning types of activities and then afternoon types of activities based on, you know, where they're at their peak of performance. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So in the mornings, what's really important to me is first family time. You know, I feel like when I start out the day and I don't have interaction with my kids or Katie, it feels like something significant is missing. And we homeschool the kids. I'm responsible for homeschooling the kids in our house. So we get up.
Blown away by you, seriously.
That we homeschool.
Well, I mean, that you do it and everything else you do. That's my goal. My daughter's 3, so we've got a little bit of time, but it's something I'm trying to plan for now, and it feels like a lot. So it's just very impressive.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's also crazy rewarding, Allie. You know, being able to sit down with my kids, knowing that they're not in an environment like I was, where I didn't feel taken care of, where I felt like really like not cared for, and so that's important. And then in the morning, we have a morning huddle every day with my team. I make sure I show up in the best way that I can for them. I usually get together with any team members that need me to after that. And then here's what I'm looking for every day. I want large blocks of uninterrupted time. I want time to be able to walk around. I want time to be able to think. If I have a project that I'm doing in a week, I don't just sit down and do the project. I take walks, I think about it, I whiteboard, I ideate, and then that by the time I'm sitting down, I really get everything I want into it. And so as an example, today from 11 to 3, I'm completely open. And so that's a 4-hour time period that I'm going to be able to really get a ton of stuff done and go deep. And I think one of the biggest challenges for entrepreneurs is we're so caught up in tactics. We're so caught up in details. We're so caught up in all the little things that we're doing that we don't have time where we really go deep, where we can think at the level we need to think to really get something done. And so that's the key to me is how do I set my team up for success? And then how do I get time to myself so that I can do the things that I need to do?
Yeah, I really love seeing those large time blocks on my calendar. And part of that is something that I've really had to struggle with, honestly, because I didn't set up my calendar booking links in a way that prevented people from doing that. And that was really detrimental to me because I'd have 30 minutes here, maybe an hour here. And so I never felt like I really was able to sit with my thoughts and do those things that you were exactly talking about. So I definitely can see where that'd be a huge benefit. Do you have any type of, you know, these are days that I take meetings with people, these are days where I do X, Y, or Z, or do you just really kind of plan your day based on the planner, see what your top 3 priorities are, and just move through them, you know, as necessary?
For me, it's the opposite. I don't plan my day. And now this is going to sound kind of weird for everybody, but my team plans my day. So they have authorization. So Brooke and Haley, who are our operations team, Brooke is our operations assistant. Haley's our director of operations. They plan the times and where I need to be, because at this point in our company's growth, I don't really know where my team needs me as well as they do. So instead of me setting up my week, I say, you guys set up my week, but these are the parameters of where I want my time. And so Mondays are a day where we meet with our team. And then the rest of the week, there's certain times that they have available if they need me. And then the rest of the time is mine. And that way I'm not trying to say, hey guys, this is where I'm going to be. And this is what, you know, this is where I can help you. Instead, they're requesting time and getting time as necessary. We call that giving up autonomy of time. It's where rather than trying to schedule everything yourself, you turn that intelligence over, those decision-making over to your team and let them know where you're needed the most.
Yeah, it just, you know, it's the Billionaire Code. Like that's your level in the Billionaire Code. I was going through it again, like earlier today, actually, and just trying to really understand where I am right now, what my biggest hurdles are, and then how I can, you know, overcome them, obviously. But that was a really interesting stage to hear about in that process, really, is that there comes a time when you don't even know what's happening. sometimes in the business, you hear about it after the fact, but your team is really responsible for doing the processes that you don't know how to do, and they are the ones that will know where help is needed the most. So that's just very interesting for me to really think about, because I'm not to that place yet, but I definitely think I'm going to give my team more of an ability to schedule that time as needed, because I'm not exactly doing that type of structure, and I can see where it'd be really, really beneficial. So,
yeah, and you know what, Allie, even at any business size, you can kind of pull that forward and say, hey guys, I need to know from you where you need me, and the dynamic will shift.
I think you're right. Just more of like servant leadership. I think that's the word that comes to mind. Always a great thing to strive for. I mean, leadership is hard. It definitely pushes you and makes you really have to evaluate how you are showing up for people. So I guess it's something that never really ends. It just morphs into different challenges and different benefits. And I guess that's the benefit of having someone like you who's really gone through all of these stages, and you know what people really do encounter at a lot of different places in their business.
Yeah.
So,
I have a saying that I share. If you don't have the business you want, you haven't become the person who can run it yet. And that's meant to be a little of a gut punch for entrepreneurs. And by the way, that applies to me also. You know, I work on myself and my business on a daily basis. And I think that when entrepreneurs say, I need balance, you don't need balance. But what we do need is we need to direct our focus in two places. We need to direct it to helping ourselves and our business. Balance is near impossible. If you can integrate those two things, integrate working on yourself with working on your business, that's where life really changes and you start getting the outcomes that you want.
you know, it was very interesting. I was at a mastermind a couple of years ago, and Josh Forty was actually talking about, you know, brain science for the most part, totally not marketing related, but really it was. And in all honesty, what he said was very similar to what you just said. You know, who you need to become to be the person and the business owner that you want, you have to get there first. And I made a list of exactly like what my dream life looked like and what are the habits that that person who's living that life has to have to get there. And it really was an interesting concept because I've never really thought of it that way. I've always just assumed that it's constantly like you're just going and you're just going and going and going. But if you can really look at the end result for the business, but also who is that person that is capable of running that type of business, you see the smaller steps and the little areas that you can work on or things that you can implement to help you get there. So it becomes more of a roadmap instead of so overwhelming and uncertain, you know? So I thought that was very powerful.
Thank you.
If you had just one piece of advice for business owners that are feeling like they're working hard all day and not really seeing anything get done, or, you know, we've already talked about the never-ending to-do list, how it's actually not a good way to live. So I suggest you guys get the Momentum Planner. But is there something that you could share with them? Maybe it's a mental shift, or maybe it's something, you know, physical that they could do that will help them get closer to that feeling that they're actually productive and doing things that are rewarding them.
Absolutely. And, you know, my team always jokes around. If you ever ask Alex a question, he's going to answer with a process. And that usually is what happens. And in this case, we have a process. I have a podcast on the Momentum podcast called Double Your Productivity in 2 Weeks. And Allie, here's the strategy we use. We call it a time study. I didn't talk about this last time we were together, right?
We talked about it briefly.
Briefly?
But you can share it again because I'm having my team do a time study now after mine was done.
Okay, cool. Because I felt like we had kind of talked about it, but like here's why I go to this strategy every single time. Because for entrepreneurs, here's how we win. Here's how we do more in the world. We are more productive on a daily basis. And that doesn't matter if you're running a $100,000 company or $100 million company, the same thing applies. In the hours that you are going to give your team, give your business, give to productivity, you want to get as much as you possibly can done. Okay, so I know we talked about the time study briefly last time, but I'll just give a little bit more detail. So basically what you do is you carry around sheets of paper, and for 2 weeks, you write down in 15-minute increments everything that you're doing. Now, here's the key. At the end of 2 weeks, there's two things you can do. One, you sit down and you write either T for tactical next to everything or S for strategic. And strategic means you should be doing it. T means somebody else should be doing it. Now, here's the other thing that I would recommend. Write down all the time you took for self-care, all the time you took for meals, and all the time you took with your family. Because here's what we see in entrepreneurs' lives. Self-care, meals, and family time is almost non-existent. And often meals and family time are the only family time that entrepreneurs have. And so here's a equation that we have seen. Now, I feel like we can prove it. It's been 10, 12 years that we've been coaching entrepreneurs on these systems. When we have them increase self-care, increase time with family, and increase time that they're sitting down to eat, for some reason, their business grows. And here's how I equate that is if you put the proper constraint in your life, you will make better decisions in your business. And here's what happens. If we go into our business all day, every day, head first, charging at it, never take a break, never get up, never look up, never take a breath, it actually has massive diminishing returns over an 8-hour day. But if we take a few minutes in the morning to walk, if we get up and go for a walk midday, if we go spend time with our spouse or our kids, we actually get the break we need, we come back, and we're more effective when we come back. So if you do a 2-week time study, look at time with family, self-care, how much time you're putting into meals. Just a quick, funny story, Allie. When I first started working with a good friend of mine, Emily Hirsch, her first time study, in a 2-week period, she had 3 hours for meals. 3 hours in 2 weeks. It's because she was doing stuff like on a team meeting, eating, and then, on a phone call, eating. And just that metric, I told her, Emily, here's the deal. If you can move that meal metric from 3 hours to 10 hours over the next 2 weeks, I bet you anything, your business will get easier. And she thought I was crazy. As she started to do it, 3 months later, we did a time study. She had way improved the time for meals. She'd improved self-care, everything. And as expected, the numbers in her business went up as well. And I remember her telling me, I didn't believe you. I was going to do it anyway and show you it didn't work. And then it started working. And so just have faith that if you take care of yourself, your business, your life, your productivity is going to get better.
I 100% agree. And I laugh because meals always get pushed on the back burner for me. I just started doing intermittent fasting, and because I know that I have a smaller window in which I can eat, it forces me to eat a larger meal earlier in the day. So I typically would be eating a protein bar, and then that's literally all I would eat for my work day until dinner time. And it was horrible for me. I mean, I was so hangry by the end of the day that your brain is not functioning. And I've noticed a dramatic difference because I actually take 30 minutes for my first meal, which I really have not done. Maybe ever. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I know that feeling.
And it just has, that one small thing has made me feel so much better throughout the rest of the day because I'm being intentional about what I eat. I'm making sure that my body has the nutrients that it needs to stay tip-top shape. And so I can totally see how that would play a really big part. And it's funny how we don't think eating is really important sometimes, or spending time, dedicated time to do it, but totally random. But there was a show that was, it came out on Netflix not long ago called Down to Earth. And Zac Efron is going to these different cultures and looking at sustainability and just a very healthy lifestyle. And one place in Italy called Sardinia has the longest life expectancy. Yeah. He's looking at what they're eating and how they do it. They literally make their meals from scratch every day with their family together and are all eating together. And it's a 2-hour process every evening. And it's just amazing what that can actually do for your mind and for your body. The elderly people in that community are very sharp. Their minds are still really strong, and you have to believe that those things are playing a major part there. So interesting to see how all of it ties together. And I think that, we kind of split our business productivity from our life practices, but based on everything that you've shared, it's really that they're one and the same. They have to be treated the same, and you have to devote just as much time to your life and your health and your happiness and your family as you do your business. And even though it feels like you're shifting your focus, you're actually going to get more done in the hours that you are working in your business. So I think that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. I personally always get a ton when I talk to you. I'm like, I get private coaching sessions with Alex Charfen. What is better than that? Every day is just like things that I go back and try and implement as soon as we're done. But I know so many people that are going to get a ton of value from this. So I really appreciate it. Okay, now what I want to ask you about is, where can people go to find your momentum planner?
Okay, so here's what's really cool. So in the first week of October, so we've never sold the Momentum Planner as a product on its own. It's been used by thousands of entrepreneurs, but only in our internal memberships. And really, we've been perfecting this thing for over 5 years. We've got science to back it up. We're excited about putting it out there. And so here's what we're doing. In the first week of October, second week of October, October 6th, 7th, and 8th, I am doing a 3-day training, and it's all about momentum. It's called Momentum Masterclass. And on the first day, we're going to look at you and your business, where you are, where you should be focused, get hyper clear on exactly what you need. The second day, we're going to be looking at where you want to be headed and getting clear on where you're going next. And the third day, it's all about execution. So understanding where you are, where you should be going, and how fast can we get you there. And it's going to include a lot of the elements of the Momentum Planner. The Momentum Masterclass content is all about how this stuff works, and it's free. So if you go to momentummasterclass.com and register, we will be able to spend 3 days together. I will answer all questions anybody has. We're looking to get hundreds, maybe even thousands of people into this training so that we can make a major impact all at once. You know, Ali, I think the coronavirus has significantly thrown the world off course. When I was just about to make this huge point, what is going to solve this crisis and what has solved every crisis in history is that as entrepreneurs, we rise above the noise, identify an opportunity, grab hold of it, and get into momentum and make it happen. I want to help you do that. So go to momentummasterclass.com, join me, and I can't wait to spend this time with everybody.
I can tell all of you guys it's going to be definitely worth your time as someone who's in one of Alex's programs. The content is amazing. It's something you can implement. It's not just talk and theory. So definitely do that. It's something you're not going to want to miss. Hopefully just from this episode and the last with Alex, you'll see how much valuable wisdom and knowledge he has to share and how much he truly cares about helping people. So hopefully you guys do that, and maybe we'll have you back after that's over one day and we can see how it went.
Ali, I enjoy recording so much with you. I will come back anytime as long as you will have me. I'm back.
Awesome. Sounds great. All right. You have a wonderful day, and thanks again.
You too. Thanks, Ali.